the Indy Sports Car Podcast.
Detroit NASCAR podcast.
I hate you.
Okay. This is Phil Will Power, and you're listening to Indy Sports Car Podcast.
Hey, this is Will Power, and you're listening to the Indy Sports Car Podcast.
Welcome, ICP fans, to another episode of the Indy Sports Car Podcast. Hey, Missy.
Hello, hello.
What's up, Jared?
How's it going?
Pretty good. And I'd like to introduce, Missy introduces everybody. I keep, we're a little bit rusty. Go ahead, Missy.
Oh, so joining us tonight is, I'm not prepared, is the voice of the, wait, no, it's not the Mazda Road to Indy. I almost did it. The Road to Indy. The Road to Indy, Rob Howden. Welcome back, Rob.
Hey, great to be back, Missy. And listen, don't beat up on yourself too much because all of us last year had to hold off saying the M word. And we're big fans of Mazda. They're just not part of the actual sponsorship package anymore. So it's not the worst thing in the world. But yes, it's now the Road to Indy presented by Cooper Tires.
Yes, the Road to Indy presented by Cooper Tires. There you go. And then also joining us, he's in the, well, if we ever get started this year, the other series that I mispronounce all the time, the Indy Pro 2000. I won't get used to that still. But he will, whenever we get the season started, he'll be driving the number 18 for Pabst Racing, right?
Yep.
Yes. Welcome back to the show, Hunter McElroy.
Thank you. It's funny. Usually at this time of year, we're kind of reviewing round one and like talking about, I think last year I actually came on with you guys and we were talking about St. Pete. So it's kind of funny feeling right now, obviously, with what's going on all over the world right now with the issue with coronavirus. But same for everyone. Nothing that we can do apart from, wash our hands and stay home and try not to spread it. But either or, it's nice to be on the show.
Yeah, it's great to have you back, man. And, the last show you were on was, it was a really great show. So just wanted to say thank you again for coming on. Still getting comments for that.
Thanks, man.
Hey, I got a question. Is it McElroy or McElroy? What do you like?
McElroy.
It's McElroy, right? Yeah.
If anyone who has a good, grasp of the English language or punctuation, not punctuation, but, anyone who can read properly would think it'd be McElroy, right?
Yeah.
But for some reason, I don't know why. Who knows? Maybe just my family always pronounced it wrong all these years, and then it's just stuck like that. But my family is known as McElroy, and my family name is known as McElroy. So.
There it is. Okay. I got it, because I got to get it right.
Because you do it right. You were doing it right. Because when all my nanas and family, and because literally I have all my families in New Zealand, and I have quite a big extended family who follows my races. And the first round, I think, and you probably only would have said it wrong once. Yep. And my nana was so mad. She's like, I need to tell him. I'm like, don't worry, Nana, he'll be okay. And then the rest of the year, you killed it. She was happy. So,
all right, good to know. Good to know.
There's a lot of pressure, man. You got a lot of angry nanas and aunties that are watching.
I love that. Number one, what I do like is the fact that if I say it wrong, you got to tell me. If I do it incorrectly, tell me from the beginning. I hate pronouncing drivers' names wrong. Just this past year, Nikita Lostushkin tells Alicia, my girlfriend, who does the social media, that I've been saying his name wrong for 4 years. I'm like,
but doesn't say a word.
We've been saying Lostoshkin. Everybody says Lostoshkin. It's like, Rob.
Not Missy, Rob. Missy called him lasting chicken.
Hey, come on.
You know what? Much easier.
Yes.
Much easier. Yeah. But it's Lostoshkin.
Well, it's like Juven, man. It's like Juven. My teammate, Juven was my teammate last year. Obviously, I know him real well, and I just call him Sunday Smoothie because when I first saw his last name, Sundaramuthi, I just thought, I'm just going to call you Sunday Smoothie. So that's you can roll that one out on the podcast. I'm sure he'd love that. But
no, listen. Between us, it's happening once this year. I'm going to call him Sunday Smoothie on the mic for sure.
There you go.
I'm doing it one time
That's all.
for you guys.
Why not?
Why not?
And I did tell Nikita I butchered his last name and called him Lasting Chicken. He was okay about it.
He's a cool cat. He's a good dude.
Well, see, when I don't know how to pronounce the name, I usually practice it, but then when I get on mic, I usually just spit it out as fast as I can, and I might have spit that one out just a little too fast, and yeah, it came out Lasting Chicken. Yeah.
So what are we talking about, guys? You want to talk about St. Petersburg or what?
Yeah, I mean, well,
It was a great race.
yeah.
Oh man, it was just so disappointing. I think, although, I think all of us heading in there, we knew kind of what was coming down the pipe in terms of, hey, can we get this done? My mind was, wow, okay, well, we're just going to be able to get in there and get this first race in the books. And then I bet from there things are going to get a little bit uglier. We got a couple of weeks after that before we go to the next race. So, man, I'm just hoping we get in here and get this thing done. And I really believe that we were going to. And then as I rolled in early, I got there Tuesday because I was part of the Cart for Kids charity race that Sebastian Bourdais puts on for Johns Hopkins Children's Hospital on Wednesday. And, everybody's, we were all fist bumping and foot tapping. We were trying to be cool. Nothing came down. Nobody thought, And then, of course, Sunday's vibe was really weird. What's going to happen? We're supposed to get on track at noon. We're starting to hear things, NASCAR's getting postponed. Things were getting canceled, right? Things are starting to get canceled already. And
the NHL
we're all,
and the NBA.
You know what I mean? Yeah, NBA. We're hearing rumors of the PGA tournament getting shut down. And when you're in the paddock, it's kind of a closed off area. We're all kind of together. Yeah. And it was really weird. And then you could feel the vibe. And then it was, then it came down and we're hearing about meetings. Dan and Michelle had to go to Dan Anderson and Michelle Kish, who run the series, had to go to a meeting. You're like, oh my God, we don't usually have Thursday meetings. What's happening here? And then, it came down that it was going to be a closed weekend, that it was going to only be, then they closed down Thursday and we're going to be on Friday and there's going to be no fans.
It was just a downward spiral, really, wasn't it?
Yeah. But, again, I guess I'm the eternal optimist, the glass half full kind of guy. I'm like, okay, that's what we'll do then. We'll do just no fans whatsoever. Everybody rolls in. It seemed pretty easy on Friday morning. We got cars on the racetrack. I'm calling some sessions and we're good to go. And then another, more meetings, and then it all happened there. So it was a tough way.
It was a weird weekend. I got to agree. Obviously, pretty much everyone else as well as me, we'd been on the road 2 weeks testing, and we had the Homestead spring training, and then we had a private Sebring test on the Tuesday before the race weekend of St. Pete. So literally on the race week of St. Pete, it was, I think like 4 or 5 different teams there. And, you're excited, right? You've been waiting all year to drive. And, spring training was a decent test. And, the Sebring test is a really strong test. So you're really excited to drive, right? And then you show up at the track. And I knew that coronavirus is an issue, but I probably was being a little I knew that coronavirus is an issue when I flew over here at the start of the year. Like a lot of people wearing masks and things like that, and you be careful. Like my mum bought me masks, and me being, I guess, I guess probably just being I would say teenager, but I'm not a teenager anymore. But I kind of was just, a part of me was thinking that I was invincible, and kind of maybe playing it down a little bit. So I literally didn't probably realistically think about it until I showed up to the track on Thursday morning for the first day of driving, what we were supposed to do. And I see McLaren pulled out of the Australian Grand Prix, and I was like, okay, this is going to affect us, because if an F1 team is going to pull out of a Grand Prix, that's going to, when F1 does something to a point, I mean, IndyCar, the reason I love IndyCar is because it's a very individual and unique and diverse series. And I'm not saying that it follows a path, but when F1 does something, I think we'd all be lying if every other race category and sport doesn't follow suit to a point, especially with health, because that's the kind of biggest issue that we always are facing with safety. And I mean, the amount of money that people invest in making racing safer, to have this worldwide issue going on right now and just ignore that would be completely stupid, right? So I kind of thought, okay, I wonder how it's going to affect. But in my mindset, I was like, okay, we're here. Everyone's loaded in. I guess the show must go on. Like, we'll get this race weekend done. I think we've just snuck in here. Like, I don't know what they're going to do with fans, and they closed the fans off, which I completely understood and agreed with. I think everyone did. I mean, it was disappointing, right? Because fans is what makes a sport exciting, because we get to do what we love in front of people that love what we do, and they're so passionate about it, especially in America. So that was disappointing, but I think a good call. And then obviously they called the racing on Thursday, and it was like, I think, and as well, like, I like to think of myself as a positive guy, and I was trying to keep positive, but I think everyone's morale and just kind of mood was weird, because we were all like, what's going to happen here? And, you know, we all got up really early on Friday to get in the track. I think at like 5:30 we were outside the gates, and then we did a practice session, and then it was called off. So obviously not ideal, but it is what it is, and we can't control it.
Yeah, it's all dominoes. You could see it starting with Disney shutting down, and that's not just Florida, but then you see March Madness, NBA, even just over in Tampa across the bay, they had the XFL team there that was supposed to have played that Saturday, and that all got shut down. And it's all dominoes. Once one starts to fall, everything crumbles.
That was the thing.
You could see it when the mayor was calling a press conference. You knew things were dire.
Yeah.
Well, it was like, I was like, if Disneyland's open, we're racing. Like, Disneyland's open, we're going to be racing. And then as soon as that closed, I'm like, uh-oh, okay. We're not looking as positive, but, you know, like I said, it's for the best, and you can't be angry. I mean, you can be upset about it, but I'm definitely not angry about the decision, because at the end of the day, they're doing it for a reason. And as disappointing as it is,
safety.
it's just out of our control, right?
Yeah, exactly. You know, we're trying to do our best to curve the curve, right? Curve the curve.
Yep. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I can't. I am so sick of this coronavirus. I'm a nurse. Everyone knows I'm a nurse, so I cannot stand it right now.
Yeah. Apparently pregnant women think they're more susceptible, so they call all
It's
day.
just a non-stop. My voice hurts. People are just out of control. Like, my biggest thing is, if you're sick, stay home. And if you're sick, don't lie to us when you walk into our office and tell us you're not sick, but you really are, and you have all these symptoms, and you just exposed how many people in our waiting room and us. Like, if you're sick and you get us sick, there's not going to be anybody to take care of you.
Yeah.
Well, shout out to you, Missy. Thank you so much for what you're doing out there. You're obviously a frontline soldier on this thing, so thank you very much for doing that.
It's a pleasure.
I'm not particularly happy about it, because I'm going to be an innocent bystander.
No, at some point she's going to run out of protective equipment to protect herself from you.
That's true.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So, obviously the thing, a question I would ask Hunter first is how do you prepare yourself right now, Hunter? What, are you on the simulator? What do you like? Are you staying with the Pabst right now? Is that where you are?
Yeah. So I'm glad you asked this. This is good timing, because everyone right now is on the Sims so much, right? And I like Sims. I think they're cool. Obviously I don't have a setup on me right now, and I think iRacing is a really good tool, and I think it's fun. And when I'm home in Australia, I have a sim there, and I do a lot of laps kind of when I'm home. So today I just ordered some stuff, and I hopefully in the next, I'm going to say 2 weeks, maybe 2 weeks, a little bit more, I'm going to have a setup here, and I'm going to be on that every day, because that's going to be the only way that I can get a fix. Obviously it's been, I mean, it's so strange, right? Because we're in off season again now. For me, it's like I was very ready. I was very ready to go. We had a decent start to the year. I mean, to be honest, I think the season starts, like the preseason properly starts at the Chris Griffiths, right? Because everyone's testing, everyone's trying out teams, and that's kind of, I felt like we progressively were ramping up from that, obviously, of the Christmas break. But I was back over here in February, and I mean, I was just so ready to go. And then it's such a funny feeling when you're ready, and then now it's like almost getting the rug pulled out from under you. So it's like, okay, how can I stay ready? And the first thing that pops into mind, obviously, there's a lot of time. I have a lot of time on my hands right now. So you can only work out so much during the day and do so much fitness training. So I'm obviously keeping physically fit, because that's one thing I noticed from the USF to the Indy Pro was how much more strength you need, particularly in the neck, just with the G-forces, because in the USF car, like, I'd never ever been tired in a race car ever. And, you know, I have to keep very lean because I'm quite tall. So a lot lighter than probably my natural body weight. I've always had to be and still am. But I put on a fair bit of muscle since last year. And yeah, so that's one part of what you do filling in the time, is maintaining that. But like you said, I definitely can't wait to get a simulator set up, because right now the Road to Indy is putting together a championship, and there's even like a group chat I'm in on Instagram right now. It's a bunch of Road to Indy drivers. And basically they're just putting together races for us to do, because there's not, like, everyone else is like me, right? It's we dedicate our lives to this, and we're in a position right now where we're competing in a professional championship, and it's kind of a full-time thing. It takes up all your space, takes up all your time. And, you know, when you're committed, like right now, it's supposed to be in race season, right? We're supposed to have had a round. We're supposed to be preparing for a second one. And then now it's like, okay, no racing. So we're kind of like, it's almost like being unemployed in a way, because you've got nothing to do, but you can't go and, it's not like we can go and get a job or something, because, okay, I can work for you for 2 months. And then when the season gets started up again, I'll never be here. So right now it's kind of, I feel like I'm like got sacked from a job or something, you know, like I feel like I'm just kind of useless. So
you're in limbo.
Yeah, exactly. I'm in limbo. So I'm looking forward to getting a sim, like I said. I've got some stuff on the way, and then I think I'm probably going to figure out a way to do some social media stuff with it. I think there's a lot of stuff like streams and that going on, but I'm probably gonna once I get everything fired up, I'll see what I can do. I might have to think about something cool.
I like it. So, hey guys, Hunter talked about it a little bit. Things are obviously coming together. You know, the NASCAR guys with NBC put together their online deal. They actually aired it on NBC Sports, which is pretty cool. We saw some of the and you can see it's interesting, right? Some of the guys had amazing sims, like some sim setups. You know, we were really rumoring that Hamlin's was worth about $100,000.
Yep.
And you got other guys that are sitting probably at a laptop at their desk, kind of thing, right? You can see guys that knew what to do and who didn't know what to do. IndyCar's got theirs coming. I think it's Saturday, right? I think Saturday night.
Yeah,
the IndyCar
streaming
one.
on IndyCar.com.
Well, just so you know, it's starting to come out. I don't think it's been officially announced yet.
No, I haven't heard anything.
Well, Road to Indies is coming ASAP too. So I know that's coming.
Oh, did I accidentally drop that?
No, listen.
Nice.
I did a Road to Indy Insider deal. And Colin Kaminsky, your buddy, Peanut Butter, dropped the hammer yesterday about it too. So listen, let's not worry about that yet, because anyways, Road to Indy's having one. I think we're gonna be driving the Pro Mazda car. It's coming down the line. It's gonna be cool. It's gonna be kind of a support race. It's gonna be before the IndyCar race on Saturday. I'm gonna try to figure out how to call it. I've never done a race sim play-by-play before. I'm gonna practice one tonight too, because I believe I'm doing another one. We're doing a Bomberito 500 throwback on Sunday. So there's a lot of sim stuff that's happening for drivers to race, and the idea is for people to be able to watch it as well. There's a lot of stuff going on.
Well,
I think it's good.
Yeah, and what's cool, we can race them too. Like Jared and I were racing with Zach Veach and Gabby Chavez on Watkins Glen the other night. So
Yep.
I've seen a lot of IndyCar drivers out there.
I just got my sim back rolling right now. I got a little bit of an issue with my steering wheel, but I'm back online now, so I'm gonna start racing.
All right.
There we go.
Let's do it.
I'll send you an invite.
It's so good to see, because, like, I mean, there's always going to be the people that say it's not the same, and obviously it's not the same, right?
It's not.
Like, sim racing will never be the same thing, but people who are kind of haters against it need to kind of accept that there's so much technology put into these things now to replicate the force in the steering wheel, the brake. I just got these pedals that, so I can literally have the same technique and the same forces as I do in the race car in the sim.
That's
And
awesome.
the amount of, if you can have something like that, it can't not be useful. You know, it's like a soccer player having a soccer ball and taking it to go kick because they do it to practice technique. And how kind of sims have progressed is I think it's turning into the same thing, is that when you have these sorts of kind of resources at your kind of arm's length, you got to go get it, because we can actually practice, like I said, the tracks we drive on that are laser scanned. We can race against the guys we race against on the weekends, or even guys who are in IndyCar or Formula One or WEC or IMSA. And it's one of these things where it's, you kind of, those guys who are single-minded and saying it's not the same, you kind of got to open up a little bit, because, you know, I think how it's going, and especially with the new kind of upcoming wave, like hopefully, like obviously in IndyCar right now with the young guys from the Road to Indy coming through, and hopefully, you know, guys like me in the future that are hopefully coming through as well. It's one of these things where we're all on sims, and I think not being on that actually is going to work out as a disadvantage. You know, I was speaking to my dad today. We're trying to sort out getting a setup. It's like, it's not cheap at all, but it's like you have to do it, because not having a sim, I actually feel like I'm being disadvantaged right now.
Yeah,
because every single one of my competition is doing it, and they're driving on the tracks that we drive out, on laser scan tracks, and I'm kind of sitting here doing nothing. So, man, I think it's a really good thing, and I think if you ask a lot of other drivers, they'll agree.
Well, and let me add this, because there's a couple things I really wanted to add, because it's interesting you say that, Hunter. One of the obvious things when it comes to the program is the fact that there's only a certain amount of tracks that you get to drive on or can drive on. You can't drive on St. Petersburg. You can't drive on Toronto. You know, you may not be able to get to some of these tracks, and it really does give you the opportunity to get on track and do 1,000 laps before you get there. Because one of the things that it's part of the road to Indy. It's a good part, but it's kind of a negative as well, as you don't get to go to a track like you would maybe at an SCCA race or something and pound out all these laps, right? Like you used to in karting. You don't get all these practice sessions, right? So when you go to Toronto, you're on track 5 times. Any of our races, right? 5 times. Practice,
100%.
Practice, couple of qualifying, couple of races. And the other side was it that I think it's a story that we got to bring up. We go to Toronto. First session out of Toronto, out of turn number 10, 11, onto the front straightaway. I think it might have been your teammate, but we don't worry about that. Boom, hammers the wall. And then another driver hammered. I think 3 drivers hammered the wall coming out of turn number 11, right? A very tough part of the track. Toronto always changes. And I remember talking to all 3 of those drivers, and they said, I was flat out through that corner on iRacing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, guys... Yes, iRacing helps you learn the racetrack, the visuals, the optics, the turn-in points, blah, blah, blah. But you don't take it as the actual real track when you go on when you get out there. You have to bring yourself up to speed slowly, right? Yeah. I couldn't believe you got to use it.
Completely double-edged sword.
That's it.
100%. For me, I know better than anyone what you're talking about with the limited track time and being prepared, because last year I was a complete rookie. I'd never raced in America. I was a rookie of the road to Indy. I was a rookie of the car. I was a rookie of all the tracks. So I had to turn up at every track and basically drink through a fire hose, right? Because there was some time, weekend where we'd have a test session before, but most of the time I had to be able to be ready to put it on pole and win. So last year a couple of times did a day with Darren Manning on his simulator, iAdvanced Motorsports. So he's got a really cool setup. I think it's an old Indy Lights tub, and then just a projector, and just kind of I guess the point I'm making is that it's a tool and you have to use it. But on the other hand of that, like you're talking about, it's not time did I ever do a simulator session and then just assume that was going to be like the real thing. It was always like, okay, I'd literally do as many laps as I felt that I needed to, and just would, go round and round and round and round, and not so much doing a lap time on the simulator, but like focusing on the things that I needed to do when I got to the real thing. So Portland, for example, right? Like I most of the other tracks, pretty much every other track I went to was a brand new track. And on R Factor 2, there was like a mod for the track. And I'm like, okay, well, this is like 2 weeks out. So, all right, I'm downloaded this thing. And there's literally like a G27 Gucky, Augie's son, who, you know, obviously I live with. He has like a little G27 on laptop. So
you're breaking up pretty bad, Hunter.
downloaded that, did like countless amounts, but it was never like, is that better? Have you got me now?
Yep, that's better.
Cool. Yeah. So, but it was never like Rob was saying, you can never just assume that it's going to be exactly the same. So I'd say it's useful and it's really good, but at the same time, you can't be oblivious and just not assume it's going to be exactly the same.
Because there was guys that assumed that, and it cost them a lot of money because there was some
You're right.
hard contact in the wall.
Well, that's another thing. You can't just press reset in real life, can you?
That's it. That is it. We'd love to be able to, but you can't do that.
Yeah.
Well, so looking ahead, they still haven't have they said anything about May yet? Is that still kind of the target right now?
Well, in talking to the people at Anderson, you know, they're one of the things about the whole road to Indy is it's kind of dependent on what happens with IndyCar, right? So it's not up to Dan Anderson, it's not up to Michelle Kish, it's up to, you know, Roger Penske and the crew at IndyCar now and what they decide to do. And of course, more so, it's up to the governments and the state governments and what we're allowed to do and the whole where we start things happen with the onset and cross our fingers, potential outset of the whole coronavirus. So, you know, everything I'm hearing is that Roger's staying put on at least the 500. I think the best case scenario, if you ask me personally, the best case scenario is the 500 becomes the first race of the year, because that would be best. There's already talk. You guys have already obviously seen the talk about the GP weekend, the road course weekend, potentially moving to the July 4th weekend with NASCAR, which I think would be, if they can put that weekend together, wow. I don't know how they do it ticket-wise. Now, granted, you know, the Indy 500 fills the place, and there's hardly anybody there for the Brickyard, so I'm sure it wouldn't be that hard to figure out where to put people. You know, I just off the top of my head, and this has got nothing to do with it. If we're not able to get, you know, St. Petersburg obviously is an issue where it's gone. But hopefully we'll be back next year. But you know, the COTA race. Remember, Indy Lights wasn't at COTA, right? So Indy Lights is at Barber. COTA is at USF 2000 and Indy Pro are at COTA. So it's not really two races. It's really one race. Even though we're losing both of those events, it's really only two main events for all three of those series. So let's just say we take two events and jam them in somewhere else. We've done triple headers at Mid-Ohio before. Yeah. We could do it. There's always an idea of using Thursday. So that puts us, what do? We can't do a Thursday at Toronto, but we could do a Thursday maybe at Road America. So let's say we use Road America. You do a triple headers at Road America and a triple header at Mid-Ohio like we've done before. You could do a triple header at Portland. You could do a triple header at Laguna. There's ways we can make up the main events so we still have enough races. That's, in my mind, that's probably, unless they think about trying to do a one-off somewhere. Let's say they say, hey, we're going to do a Road to Indy only weekend, and we're going to go to wherever it may be, Grattan, whatever club track we can go to that's safe enough, and bring the AMR safety team in, whatever it is. That's another possibility as well. But I think we're more likely to see a couple of triple headers.
I said New Jersey Motor Sports Park. That's just wishful thinking on my part. Since I
Missy, I love it.
That's it.
I love the track, but you can't pass there.
Yeah, I know.
I announced Alexander Rossi winning Formula BMW races there. I don't think we had a pass all weekend long. It's such a hard place to pass on. It's a Herman Tilke. Yeah. It's an Alan Wilson. An Alan Wilson design, and they're so hard. Alan Wilson design tracks are so hard to pass on, in my opinion.
And they're so hard to see from any really perspective wherever you go.
Exactly. Yeah,
It's
exactly.
just a half-hour drive from my house. That's the only reason I want it.
I hear you. But again, if there was a club weekend, there's somewhere else. You know what? Roger Penske owns the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Is not saying that we couldn't come back and do another because we're not. Let's say we're not able to do the GP weekend. There's nothing saying that in an open place somewhere, maybe in October or whatever, we couldn't come back and do the road to Indy as a one-off weekend at IMS. That's a possibility too.
Yeah, I think with that whole thing, just what you were to touch on before, what you were talking about the triple headers, I think that's probably a really realistic option. I followed the road to Indy obviously before I joined last year when I was racing in Formula Ford in 2018 in Australia and Mid-Ohio, and I'm pretty sure like a lot of the years before that, Mid-Ohio was always a triple header. So obviously with the situation we're in right now, I can't see why they can't do that again. Obviously we kind of got to cram in as many races as we can that we've missed, and hopefully we don't miss more. Obviously it's wishful thinking. I mean, right now I'm still preparing and hoping that we're going to be on track for the Indy GP. Right, I love that track. I love Indy, and I think racing at the Brickyard is such an awesome thing. So who knows? Like, I hope that we can race, but I kind of agree with Rob because just looking at what everything's going on right now, Formula One, even V8 supercars back in Australia, they've postponed everything till June. So who knows what will happen here? But with that triple header thing that Rob was talking about, I think is definitely something that, as a driver, I think that's a really good option. And, more races, more opportunities to get points and, more races for the fans to watch. And just for us to get as many races, for us to get as many races as we can, I think is going to be good.
Yeah, I think I did get a little nervous when F1 canceled Monaco, and I was just like, oh, God. All I can think about is the Indy 500s next.
Well, hey, the thing, Missy, to comment on that, remember, Monaco's like a street circuit. It's like Long Beach, right? So it's there's so much that goes into putting on Monaco. Like I've said before, when it comes to other racetracks, they flip the switch and we go racing. If Roger can put the Indy 500 whenever he wants. Yes, he may not get the 250,000, 300,000 fans, or people would come in as they can. But it's obviously more of a TV. It's not saying it's more of a TV event. It's a major league TV event. If he can put it together with NBC and it ends up being July the whatever, he flicks the switch. The track goes on. Everybody's there, and we go racing. It's not like Monaco where you have to shut the entire city down or anyone like Toronto. If Toronto, like St. Petersburg, what do you do with St. Petersburg? Right? I don't know if it's something you can't reschedule. Long Beach talked about trying to reschedule, but it's so hard to do when you're talking about, especially downtown streets like Long Beach, right? Roger can just open the gates. Let's have the 500, and people are going to come because they'll come for the 500.
Agreed.
If you open the gates, they will come.
Hell yeah, they will. They'll bring coolers and all.
Yeah, you know it.
Yeah, to kind of build on that, when Long Beach said they wanted to find a way to hold it, there's no way you're going to hold it. There's so many residents that don't even want the race there in the first place, let alone to move it another time of the year.
Yep.
Which is a very unfortunate thing because Long Beach, one of the best street races in the world. It's the atmosphere and everything around it is so great.
Agreed.
But
we don't have to worry about that for the road to Indy because we haven't been there for a while with Indy Lights. It doesn't affect Hunter's year at all. I
did remember wasn't it 2015 was the last time? 2015, 2016 that Indy Lights was at.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Because I remember I was there the first time I went to Long Beach. There was Indy Lights there, and that was nice to see.
We loved going there, but it was very expensive to be on that lineup for the series. You had to pay quite a bit of money to get a slot on that gig.
I say they can only Baltimore back just to replace St. Pete for the season. That's all. I just want to go back to Baltimore. Hell, I really love that road.
Don't even say that word.
Yeah, I like seeing chicanes for train tracks as
Oh
well.
my God, it's horrible.
If you're gonna say anything, say Houston, because Houston was actually pretty decent.
Hey,
How about Watkins
air
Glen?
conditioned
Yeah,
Hey, I
definitely.
loved Watkins Glen. I went each of the 2 years they were back.
So yeah, Watkins Glen could end up. I'm just throwing it out there. We talk about doing a race for just the road to Indy. Maybe Watkins Glen.
Yeah, I mean that track, they raced there in 2017, right?
Yeah. It was people. They repaved it. It was an amazing. Was it 17 or 18? No, I think it's 17. I don't think we ever raced the new. No, it was 17. Yes.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, we did.
Set all sorts of records.
Yeah, and then the track was repaved and fast, and then we went to Portland for 2 years in 18 and 19 on Labor Day weekend.
Yeah.
That's it.
So Portland was the last round of the championship in 2018, if I'm correct.
Yes.
If I'm correct, I think that was right. And then Laguna was last year was kind of the first time in a while, right? As the last since 2016, I'm thinking.
Oh, might even be before 2016.
yeah.
Was it 2016? It might. You might be. You might. No, I think you're right. I think it was Laguna in 2016. You're right.
Yeah, because it was only the road to Indy. IndyCar wasn't there. It was just the capstone final weekend for the road to Indy.
Yeah, and I think we had the MX5 Cup with us as well that weekend. I think
No.
it was kind of it was a
It's a
Mazda
good show.
weekend. I think it was a Mazda weekend. I think
Yeah, that
right?
was back when it was still Mazda Raceway Laguna.
That's right.
Seca.
That is correct.
Yeah, and
That makes sense.
wasn't that the race where Pato and Aaron Telis got together in like race one, and then Pato wound up losing the championship then?
Yeah, I think they did get together. Yeah, I think they were battling for the championship together. And that was what a battle that was, because Pato won like 6 of the first 7 races.
Yep.
And then Aaron Telitz got to his home track at Road America and swept that weekend, and away we went. What a great battle that was.
It really
And then
was.
Pato's in IndyCar, and Aaron's doing what he can, getting some great rides in sports cars, and continues to try to get into IndyCar as well. Aaron's a great shoe.
Yeah, and I still can't get over Pato Award and Oliver Askew at McLaren. It's just such a weird thing to say, isn't it? But it's so awesome because the first time we had Ali on, it was with you, Rob, and it was before Ali ever raced a single race in the MRTI at the time.
Yeah, what I think it does, and I'll say this right now. I'll let Hunter comment on it, because guys I've talked to, when I was doing my new IG Live deal on my Road to Indy Insider Instagram deal, I'm kind of asking this question, because to have Pato and even maybe more so Oliver there, but the two of them being picked by Aero McLaren Racing SP, I think it gives every road to Indy driver that renewed hope, because everybody in the paddock has to be saying, okay, what are we doing wrong? Because really, this is really the first opportunity, the first time we've seen, other than Colton Herta. Let's be real. Colton came into the program. We knew Colton was going to the IndyCar series.
Right.
Brian was going to make sure he got there. He's had the skills. I watched the kid come up through cadet karting and junior karting. We've watched Colton. We know he has the skill set. He's got the DNA of his dad. He was going to IndyCar. That in my mind, he was going to IndyCar. Brian already has the connection to Andretti. I knew he was going to end up at Andretti, which he has. But for every other driver, it's been this battle, right? Gabby Chavez doing what he can, winning championships, winning big races. Got a shot. He's got little shots here with Dale Coyne. Gabby Chavez is a driver who needs another shot.
Oh, yeah,
Jack Harvey wasn't able to win the championship, but he's scrapping, trying to find. Then meets Mike Shank, gets an opportunity. Every driver has come up. Kyle Kaiser with Juncos, he wins the championship, has not yet been given a big opportunity. Even Spencer Piggott won the championship. He was with Ed Carpenter Racing, right? And they weren't powerhouses, but he was with Ed, and he really wasn't given an opportunity to grow as much as he can. This is the first time in the 10 years that we've done this that a couple drivers on all, and even the champion of Indy Lights has been given a major league ride.
Yeah.
Not a big 3 ride, but Aero McLaren SP is right there, right? They're kind of like 4 or 5. They're one of those teams. Are they going to be the ones that become part of a big 4? Now, Hunter, how does that make you feel as a driver? I would expect you're going to say, hey, man, I feel like there's a shift in the way team owners are thinking of us for Road to Indy drivers, and they're they're gonna want to roll the dice on us, and they're not gonna want to let us go to somebody else. I think whoever wins the championship this year is going to be in a pretty good ride next year in IndyCar. That's my feeling.
I think you've kind of nailed it right on the head, firstly. But a kind of side story that I think is really cool is in 2018. So in 2018, I'd literally just won my Formula 4 championship, my national championship in Australia. And for me to get through to Indy, just with everything, it was like the only way I was going to get my foot in the door here is that if I won the shootout, and then firstly I had to make sure that I won. Obviously at the time I needed to win the championship last year or have a really strong year. And at the shootout, the first night we were at dinner and I was sitting next to Oliver, and at the time obviously he won the shootout in 2016 I think, 2016 or 2017, no 2016 I think.
2016,
he won it.
Yep.
And then I won, obviously the year I won it was 2018, and I was sitting next to him at dinner, and we were kind of talking about what I did, like the season I just had and season he just had. And I think he, at the time, it was called Pro Mazda. He got third in the championship. And we're just talking, and I was like, so, what's next for you? What's for you next year, man? Like, do you know what you're going to do? Obviously, this is in 2018, end of that year. And he's like, oh, I don't know. He's like, I honestly don't know. I might do another year of Pro Mazda, which is obviously now Indy Pro, or I might see if I can scrape together an IndyCar ride, an Indy Lights ride. And, that was that. Obviously, I won the shootout, and Oliver was a really good kind of influence. And obviously, he was a judge there, and we've kind of just got on really good ever since. Like at the track or whatever, we'll always, if I'm crossing passes, and then we'll always have a chat. And yeah, I mean, I guess the moral of that story is he literally didn't know if he was going to be in Indy Lights last year, and then now he's in an IndyCar ride. So all I can say is that the reason that I love racing over here is I literally got onto the road to Indy purely by winning. I got an opportunity from Mazda after I won the shootout. And then this year, obviously last year, I feel like I got to show what I could do as a driver. And now I have a shot to be an Indy Pro. So this year for me, it's the same thing again. I'm only here I'm not really here just because I can be. It's been a massive, really, really, really big, struggle from everything. My family have invested so much in me, my backers, and so many other people. And to see guys like kind of, I guess, Oliver in particular, who is kind of from the same humble beginnings to get a ride, and especially, straight out of Indy Lights to be in a full-time ride. Like Rob said, the last couple of years, the Indy Lights, you never really see many Indy Lights champions comfortably with full-time rides. But to see
you're cutting out.
But it's really encouraging,
But yeah, definitely. I mean, and Oliver kept this demeanor. He and Rob can attest to this. Like Ollie was always Ollie, exactly. He's never. The only time I ever seen him get really hyped and excited was with you in that picture after he won the Indy Lights championship. That's the first time he finally broke the Ollie personality, and you know what I'm talking about.
Well, yeah. After he won the Freedom 100, and we were in Victory Lane with the interview for IndyCar Radio, he, I brought back the picture that we had talked about. It was kind of coming in that when he was a young karter, George Arellano, who runs the Ocala Grand Prix track down in Ocala, Florida, they were all up at an event at Newcastle, and they brought the drivers in there, and they were on Victory Lane. And Oliver was remembering the fact that at one point he was up there on that podium looking down, saying, "Hey, I'd love to have a race here one day." And here he and I are doing an interview in Victory Lane after winning the Freedom, and yeah, the emotion is overwhelming when you're able to make something like that happen, and that was kind of what it was for Oliver. And the simple fact is that he's growing. Listen, Frankie, you guys know, you and Missy know, he's growing as a young man. Oh, sure. He's going to be a bit different this year. He's not going to be the same happy-go-lucky Oliver. And I've watched this with every driver who's come through the road to Indy. When they get to IndyCar, there's so much pressure. I never ask for as much time as I normally do. I hope that they'll give me time. There are some drivers who will never ever wave me off. like a Charlie Kimball and a Zach Veach. These guys are absolutely amazing, and I don't expect that will ever happen from Oliver either, because I've been with him for so long. But he's going to grow up. He's going to get, and you're going to have to get tougher, because Hunter, you'll say this: you've had to be tougher, you've had to be stronger, you've had to have tougher skin as you come up the ranks. You told me last year before you won your first race of the year that that's the longest streak you've had not winning a race, and it was starting to work on you, and that's going to toughen you up and make you stronger. And it's going to make you better this year. It's going to make you better next year.
100%. I mean, obviously, the higher you get up and the higher categories you race in, it's always going to get tougher. It's obviously not going to get easier. So, even from Formula 4 to USF, I notice a big difference in just obviously the competition. And again, it's the same thing from USF to Indy Pro, obviously, and to Indy Lights, and then obviously IndyCar. It's one of these things where you got to constantly be getting better. One of the things that I really had instilled in my mind last year was like winning a race. Obviously, it gives you a lot of confidence, but the mindset isn't when you win, like, okay, I've won a race. I'm here now. This is the level I got to be at. It's like, no, okay, I'm here now, but for the next race, I have to be twice as good, because everyone else is going to be twice as good as they were. And it's like you're constantly just chasing this end goal that's constantly moving. It's a moving goalpost, I guess you could say. So you got to be really tough, because 9 times out of 10, a lot of the time, I wouldn't say 9 times out of 10, because I've been really lucky with my career so far. I've had a lot of success, but a lot of the time, your racing is a roller coaster of emotions. So everyone that's achieved anything in the sport will contest to that and say that, even if it looks amazing on paper, there's so many highs and lows. And I think the key is making sure your lows aren't too low, but even your high is not too high. It's kind of keeping as even keel as you can and rolling with the punches, and then just maximizing it every time you're in the car. So the best guys like Dixon, I've been lucky enough to talk to him a lot. I spoke to him after I won my first race in Road America, which is really cool. And kind of a lot of the times after I won a race, I'd go and have a chat to him in his hauler. And that was the biggest thing, is I said to him, it's like, he keeps so calm. And I think the best example of that is at Detroit last year. He crashed out completely by himself, hit the wall, hit the inside wall, and then bounced into the outside wall. And the next day he won the race. So I think it's having that mindset of not letting the highs get too high, like I said, and the lows get too low, and just rolling with the punches, and being able to bounce back like that is the key to it, I think. And, it's a lot easier said than done, because like me, a lot of guys, racing is my life, right? And racing is a lot of pretty much everyone else's life too. So it's hard not to get your emotions tied up in it, but it's kind of detaching that as much as you can, and almost being a robot, I guess, in the car. But, also, I guess, showing some emotion when you win, that's when you kind of let it out. And that's what the fans like to see too, I guess. So, yeah.
You know what, Hunter? Scott's obviously a fantastic guy to use as a mentor and as a goalpost. And there's one thing about Scott too, and you mentioned how he's just so controlled, and it's never too high, never too low. But of course, you celebrate your successes. But the other thing about Scott that I've seen, which I have so much respect for, is the minute he gets out of the car, I don't care if he's sixth, or if he's second, or if he's first. Or if he hasn't, maybe he didn't even make it to the fast 12. Maybe he didn't even make it in, or the fast 6, whatever it may be. The bottom line is that he stops, composes himself, puts his glasses back on the hat, and it's a perfect interview every time. And maybe it's not perfect every time, but he's there every time. He doesn't phone it in. He's in my mind, single best interview in the IndyCar paddock when I'm out there with IndyCar Radio, because I can always count on Scott to recenter himself and give me great content. He's just the ultimate pro. He's just such a class act.
100%. I think that just comes down to, like I said, I mean, there's a guy that doesn't let his emotions get in the way of his performance. And even, I'm sure, like any other race car driver, if he's having a bad session or had a bad day, it's burned you inside, So the all you want to do is go and headbutt a wall almost. It's like you're so angry, but
Yep.
the guys that can compose that, and like you said, like Scott, he can just literally have the worst day ever and still give a great interview. I think that's the key to it, or one of the keys to it, and having not necessarily that skill, but I think that mindset of just being able to be so relaxed with whatever's going on, while still being focused and obviously caring a lot about it, is what kind of gives him his edge and why he's won so many championships.
Definitely. Can't argue with that. Jared?
Yeah, I mean, it's just the calmness you see out of him. And like Rob said, doesn't matter where he finishes first, doesn't finish mid-pack. He gets out of that car, and it's like everything just washes over him, and he's ready for the next challenge. And that's what makes him one of the greatest drivers of all time.
Definitely. Just we've been watching a legend in the making this whole time. Missy, what do you think, Missy?
Yeah, Scott Dixon's okay. I like Will Power. No,
I actually like Will too. Will's a good dude. I was speaking to him at St. Pete. He's a really good guy, and again, I mean, he's a guy that wears his heart on his sleeve.
Yeah.
But he's another guy that's an absolute legend. You know, IndyCar champion, Indy 500 champion, and the cool thing about him is that I literally was having a chat to him at St. Pete like he was just another Indy Pro driver or a USF driver. You know, he didn't have this like. He didn't and this is the same thing with Scott. And the coolest thing for me is like these guys that you watched your whole life growing up on TV, racing in IndyCar, winning races, winning Indy 500s, and you're talking to these guys like they're your friend or just another guy you race against, like eye to eye, not getting looked down on. That is like, for me, that's like at the time you're just having a talk, but when you're kind of sitting here or sitting down having time to think about it, it's like, damn, that was just Will Power. That was just Scott Dixon. It's like, it's so funny, you know, to think that you're actually talking to those guys. So, no, he's a great guy.
Hey, one day somebody's going to go, hey, that's just Hunter McElroy. Right? I'll tell you a cool story about Will Power. And here's another deal where Will is who he is. We all know, we all watch his social media. He's an absolute hoot on social. But Will's also a guy that loves the grassroots of the sport. He came up through karting like so many people did. Last year, he showed up at the Superkarts USA Super Nationals, which is the biggest kart race in the world, 500 and something people every year. It's a parking lot at the Rio Hotel in Las Vegas. Billy Vincent, who used to work with Team Penske and is now, I believe, maybe one of the top guys.
Schmidt-Peterson team manager.
Exactly. Well, it's not Schmidt-Peterson anymore. Come on, Hunter.
Sorry. McLaren Arrow Schmidt.
SP. Anyway, so he and Billy were out there. Just a couple of dudes. You know, and Will came and raced, and he had his seat all padded up, and he wrecked one practice session. In the heat races, he got fast lap in every heat race. Didn't have quite a great main event, but he just had an absolute blast. They were in there, they were having a good time, just two guys digging in it. Well, they loved it so much that he actually just at the race, when we were at St. Petersburg, SCUSA had their first Pro Tour race at NOLA, and they only got to Friday, just like we did. They weren't able to even get to Saturday before it got shut down. But Will and Billy are rolling out the WPK. So the Will Power Kart is coming out now. These guys are going to go in all in supporting karting as well. So not only is Will now a champion, Indy 500 race winner, he's getting back into karting. They're going to have a team. He's going to be at the kart track. For me, a guy that has lived his life in karting for 25 years, to see those guys come back like that and just get right back into karting, I think it's the coolest thing. Will Power's just so grounded. That's one of the things that I guess grounded would be the best word to use about Will.
Yeah. And I have a cool fact about Will Power. Well, not about Will Power, but the Power family, is that my first ever racing cars was a Formula Ford, a Queensland State Formula Ford race in Australia. And Will Power's dad was in the same race as me. So nice. That's kind of funny. How, like, a cool little fact. I actually forgot to tell him that, but Will Power's dad, I believe, still races to this day as well. So it's cool. I mean, they're just like my family, and like I guess a lot of other families. They're just, racing's racing, right? Doesn't matter if it's IndyCar or club level racing. That's it. The passion's all the same, and I think the real races are I'd like to think of myself as a real racer. My whole family, all of you guys. Obviously, it doesn't matter what it is. Racing is racing, right? And it's what ties us all together as a sport. And I think the guys who are really purists all know that. So,
Agreed.
And we all gotta stick together and just accept what's gonna happen and make the best of it. It sucks, but you gotta do what you gotta do.
We're going racing soon. Don't worry. We're gonna get this thing flattened out, and we're going racing.
We'll be back.
Yeah.
We'll be back.
Definitely.
Indy 500, first race of the year.
There you go.
I do like that. I do like that. Jared, what do you think? Indy 500 first race of the year.
I'd be fine with it. I mean, NASCAR does their Super Bowl of their biggest race of the year right off the bat. There's people out there that would argue that the Indy 500 should be the first race of the year every year, but I wouldn't want to wait till Memorial Day weekend every year to get started.
Me neither. No.
Yeah, and that's tradition, and that would be breaking tradition, right? So can't do that.
No. I have a feeling tradition will be broken this year, so.
Yeah, it's already been broken very much. Missy, what do you think?
I think it'd be the first race of the year.
Yeah, definitely.
Or the last race. It'd be cool, too.
The only race of the year?
No, the last race of the year.
I'm just saying, who knows?
Hey, all I know is we've been going for like an hour and a bit, and I got to get a beer.
I was just looking at the time.
There you go. I was just going to say the same thing.
Yeah,
I haven't eaten dinner yet, and I need to eat.
I was just looking at the time, and we hit it perfectly, right under the hour, which is always what we try to aim for, so perfect.
Awesome.
Alrighty. Jared, where can they find your good stuff at, buddy?
You can find me on Twitter at JDaPow. My website's realopenwheel.com.
Right on. Rob, where can they find your podcast and all your other good content, buddy?
I am Road to Indy Insider on Facebook and Instagram now. RTI_Insider on Twitter. At Rob Howden, I think is everything. At Rob Howden Racing on Instagram, I think. Rob Howden on Twitter and Facebook. eCardyNews.com, of course, for everything. And the podcast, which I got to get rolling on a podcast because I've been doing these IG Live thing. They've been fun. I'll do a podcast as well, and you can find that all on Podbean or, of course, on Apple as well.
Yep. Yeah, Podbean's great, isn't it? You just
love it.
Post
love
it. It goes everywhere.
That's it.
Hunter, where can they follow your career at through your social media outlets?
So I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Just Hunter McElroy, nice and simple, no underscores or anything like that. McElroy is McElrea, and obviously Hunter is just like the usual spelling. And yeah, I'd love for you guys to follow the journey.
Right on. And all of that information will be in the show notes below, guys. So if you want to follow these guys, definitely follow them. Rob is just a deep, I think he's forgotten more than he knows at this point.
I'm getting old.
and Hunter is, just a great, I think he's got a really bright career. So definitely follow him, through his journey. And
he's a future star of the IndyCar series right now, folks. This is a guy you want to follow.
You're gonna be a star, kid, a star.
Thank you, Rob.
And Missy, where can they follow all the show stuff?
Everything you can find at www.theindysportscarpodcast.com.
Right on. And I think on that note, baby.
And on that note, you know that I know that, of course, I think everybody knows Jared, Hunter, and Rob. Make sure you check on your friends whose races are being canceled. We're not okay,